Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all well. Thank you for joining the Roundtable League Club tonight. Say hello, boys, like Celebrity Squares. Everyone wave. Hi, boys. And also welcome to our guest speaker, Claire Hughes, joining us. Hi, Claire. Next year, Claire is part of a 15-strong team who are attempting a world first to navigate the Northwest Passage. So firstly, Claire, welcome. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I'm glad you can join us. So for starters, for those of the guys watching that don't know anything about the Northwest Passage, what is it?
It is the route joining the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans across the Arctic Ocean, runs across the top of Canada through to Alaska. At least the stretch that we're doing does. So we're doing what's called the Northwest Passage Arctic route, which only opens up for a couple of months, maybe 3 or 4 months of the year. But we're seeing it open up increasingly due to climate change. So that's when the ice flows melt enough to allow passage through. The rest of the year, it's frozen completely solid.
I understand, having read a little bit around it, I understand that this your attempt, if you're successful, would be a world first. So what are the challenges and what stops those people that have attempted it before from actually completing it?
Sure. Well, I suppose, first of all, it's important to clarify that we're going to be rowing it. So I think obviously various people have made it through in different vessels. But yeah, we'll be the first expedition to successfully row through the entirety in one season. There's a number of key differences for us. One of the other things is, as well as being a world first, we're actually doing it in a brand new design of boat as well. So it's never been used before. So our expedition leader has been working with a designer from Aston Martin to come up with this brand new ocean rowing boat design. And so he's kind of incorporated a number of things based on his other expeditions and his line of work, which he thinks will increase our chances. So that's to do with how it deals with crosswinds and the ice, you know, so it's reinforced, it's a little bit thicker, so it's quite well insulated. So that's one of the first key differences. The next one is we're actually doing it a different way. So all the previous attempts, there have been 3 attempts this century, and all 3 of those have attempted to start in Alaska and row through to Canada. So they've gone west to east. We're rowing it the other way around. So that's going to be an interesting strategy. But our reasoning being that previous attempts have gone with the current. So generally the flow is, again, west to east. But it's actually a really, really light current. And so we've decided, actually, ocean rowing boats are so affected by the wind, we'll go with the prevailing wind. So that's our other big strategy. I think one of the other things is the East Coast gets colder and starts to freeze over earlier. So again, that's a bit of a gamble. It means that we'll be possibly starting our attempt a little bit earlier in the season. However, we might have a little bit longer at the other end to make it through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so and anticipated sort of expedition length. What are you? And what are the?
Yeah.
Because you said in terms of obviously the ice flow and obviously to allow you through. What are you hoping to do it in? And I guess, you know, what are the buffers that you're working with in time
So we're assuming that it's going to take us around 60 to 70 days. That's what we're preparing for. But the things that could massively affect that time will be the weather. You know, if we have a lot of storms, a lot of squalls, which could push us into land, could push into ice, etc. Another issue will be if the ice starts freezing over a bit earlier. You know, one of the key risks that we're facing is we could actually get trapped in ice. So yeah, those are the key ones, I guess, and just making sure we've got enough supplies.
Yeah, because I mean, in terms of obviously, you know, nearest cities, towns. I mean, how far? Worst case scenario, how far away are you from the nearest drop points or civilization?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. You know, you've got some scattered Inuit communities along the coast there, but you know, we're talking a very long way from any kind of big cities. We're actually talking with the Canadian Navy about support. So, you know, if we do run into trouble or anything, being able to communicate with them by radio or sat phone, and that would probably be our first port of call for help.
So the 3 boats that I understand you're taking, 3 boats, 15 crew, you're completely self-sufficient. Once you're
Yes,
out there, all your supplies, food, drink, everything.
that's right.
You're completely self-sufficient.
Absolutely, yes. So that's what we're very much aiming for, is to put ourselves in the record as the first completely self-sufficient expedition to row through. Yeah.
Okay. And I understand that you've got a film crew going with you to obviously video the journey, but I understand that they're more than just documenting your trip. It's an opportunity from a conservation point of view to record what's going on out there. Was that something that you were particularly interested in, or was it just a byproduct of the expedition for you?
No, I think it was the whole package that really drew me in. You know, it's a great opportunity, obviously from a kind of adventurous challenge perspective, really, really exciting. But yeah, there's a hugely important message there as well, and the impact that that's having on the local community and the kind of traditional ways of life and all that sort of thing. And it's a fantastic chance to get out there and see it for ourselves, go out there with an open mind, but to kind of meet and talk to people and gather information. But because no one's done this before, and because we're an international, you know, expedition with people from, you know, South Africa, America, Hong Kong, the UK, there's a really, really great chance to get that message out there. You know, everyone's going to be excited by what we're doing and wanting to know more about it. So it's a fantastic opportunity to broadcast a wider message at the same time.
Yeah, and from a wildlife point of view, because I have no idea what's potentially out there, what are you hoping to see out there?
Well, that's an interesting one. So I suppose the first thing that everyone thinks of when you say the Arctic is that famous cuddly white beast, and it's like, well, I'd love to see one, but at a safe distance. So I suppose one of the most exciting pieces of wildlife is also one of our biggest threats, because they can swim considerably faster than we can row. So yeah, that's a very real risk, but also incredibly exciting to see some. And then yeah, obviously whales. Yeah, very exciting to see them. Yeah, but I think the main focus is on polar bears at the moment from a number of angles.
And so talk to me about temperatures. It's obviously quite difficult necessarily to train in this country for those temperatures. But what sort of temperature are you envisaging experiencing up there?
Yeah, it could be a real range actually. So it is Arctic summer, and having kayaked up in the Arctic Circle in the middle of summer, I did manage to time a visit up there in a heat wave once, where it was actually hitting the 20s during the day, which is crazy. But I think what we're preparing for is highs of 10 degrees, and then anything down to kind of -10.
That's warm.
Yeah, yeah, positively sweaty. Yeah, I mean, I was up in northern Sweden in March this year, dog sledding up in the mountains for a week, and it was getting down to -20 there, and just kind of scooting along, thinking about how it would feel to be out rowing in those sort of temperatures was, yeah, that was quite a wake-up call. So there's a lot of focus at the moment on our equipment. You know, there's, as I say, it could well get up to 10 degrees and that will be fine. It's not going to be particularly hot, to be fair. 10 degrees is still reasonably cool, but you know, once we're getting down to those sub-zero temperatures and over a period of 2 to 3 months, I think we absolutely will be experiencing quite a bit of that. Yeah, we really need to make sure that we are prepared for that, what we're wearing, how we're layering, and maintenance regime.
So, from the point at which you got involved in this project, how long had it sort of been mooted that this was going to be going ahead, and at what point did you join, and you know, what made you want to get involved?
Yeah, lots of good questions there. So I suppose I got involved in ocean rowing from doing an Atlantic row a couple of years ago. And as a part of that, we were working with an ocean rower in the Scottish Borders called Lieven Brown. And he helped us prepare our boat basically, and helped us with some training. And he was also on the satellite phone when we were doing our crossing and gave us a bit of help with weather routing as well, which was great. So we had a bit of a relationship with him there. And then when we got back to the UK, Phil and myself, one of my team members from the Atlantic, kind of stayed in contact. And it's funny when you do a big expedition like that and you spent 2 years basically preparing for it, it's taken up your life. and then it's all finished, there's this kind of weird hole in your life, and it's all, you can almost feel a bit depressed, to be honest. It's a real struggle coming back down to normal, and just dealing with not having this huge thing on the horizon anymore. And so you speak to a lot of other ocean rowers, and spoke to Leven a lot because he's done a number of these expeditions and understands what it's like. And so there was always that dialogue. And then I think in November last year, he dropped a message on a WhatsApp group that he and Phil and I have got together, just saying, guys, just so you know, I'm going to be publishing this expedition and looking for expedition members over the next week. And I think for both Phil and I, we just had a "oh, that's it" moment, and both of us were pretty obsessed with getting involved from then on. I think in terms of how long it's been an idea in Leven's head, I couldn't tell you exactly, but I think a pretty long time. I mean, he keeps referring to it as his swan song. I don't believe that for a minute. but yeah, I think that kind of romanticism of the last great first. It's long been an ambition of his for several years, I think.
Great. So you've been involved for for quite a while within that, and then presumably the group leaders and the organisers have added to the team to where you are now. I was just wondering, and maybe that's a completely daft question, but everyone, I'm assuming, is experienced rowers and has a
no.
What's the audition process? You stick someone on a rowing machine and go, I'm going to watch you go, and if you pass, then you're in, or?
That's funny, actually. I think a lot of people get really, really honed in on the physical aspect, because obviously what you put your body through doing something like that is utterly brutal. But actually, there's only so much preparation that you can do for something like that. And that's almost the easy thing to focus on. I think if you think, I just need to do 20 hours in the gym a week, I need to spend, 2-hour slots on a rowing machine every day, it's hard, but actually it's really easy and tangible, and that's fine. And I think what often falls by the wayside, and actually is far, far more important, is your mental preparation, and actually really thinking about what you're facing, contingency planning for how you're going to deal with different scenarios, really thinking about what your own personal weaknesses are, being really honest with yourself, and actually communicating that with your team as well. So actually, for me, and I think it's been quite funny watching Leven as well, actually it's that you've got people who are experienced in that kind of adventure world. So whether you're a rower or not, it's a bonus if you are, but if you're not, we can teach you. It's not really a huge issue. But actually just having that kind of mental understanding of how to deal with it, and also how to interact with your team members, everyone being on the same page in terms of what you want out of the expedition, that's actually so much more important. So yes, actually a huge number of us are ocean rowers. Most of us have got at least one crossing under our belts. Some people have got several. There's good few world records in there as well. So in terms of the team he's pulled together, it's probably the most experienced kind of ocean rowing team there is. But there are still a few people on there who, no, they're not rowers. They know how to use a rowing machine, and they're learning to row on a river at the local rowing club suddenly. But they are experienced in the outdoors. And also it's pulling on different skills. So we've got medics involved, and we've got, personal trainers and all that sort of thing. So yeah, ocean rowing is so much more than just that kind of physical rowing part.
But I guess but being part of a team can be a double-edged sword, in as far as put your teammates there to pick you up when you're struggling and you're tired, and they're there to to mentally and physically pick you up. But then you've got that really close, that bubble of being in each other's pockets continually, day after day, hour after hour, and tensions can get frayed, and that's actually when you can potentially fall out with people. So it is a double-edged sword, isn't it, having that, being in such close proximity to each other?
Yeah, and I mean, I've come across teams that have finished the Atlantic. These are teams that are, best friends since they were like 4 years old. Know each other inside out. Get off the boat and never speak to each other again. So that absolutely happens. We were actually the complete opposite, slightly extreme other end of the scale, in that it was quite dramatic for us just getting to the start line for Atlantic Row. We had a number of changes in the team and basically ended up in a situation where when we set off, we didn't all know each other, to the extent that we hadn't actually rowed together as a team until we left the Canaries, which was a bit crazy. And I guess we were just fortunate and maybe a little bit more mature in our outlook, in that, you know, the art of compromising and working together. And actually it gave us something to talk about, to be honest, getting to know each other. But you're right. It's, you know, it's an incredibly small space, and that's why I think that psychological preparation is just absolutely key, absolutely fundamental. You've got to think of all the little niggles that could come up, you know, no matter how small. And you've got to think about how you're going to deal with it, and you've just got to be upfront and open with each other. And that was something that I felt in our final crew that actually did the Atlantic Row. We absolutely nailed that. It was really good. We had a fantastic team bond.
Yeah. I'm just interested. So I think it's a 5 of you per boat.
That's right. Yes.
Will you be chopping and changing during the course?
Yeah.
Sticking to your 5.
So that's something that's a little bit unusual from your bog standard ocean row as well. So the reason, quite often with a 4-person boat, you row in pairs. So 2 people are rowing while 2 people are resting. Actually, that means a whole host of jobs and all sorts of other things. But yeah, so you do 2 hours on, 2 hours off. It's a really simple shift pattern. But we're obviously going to be going through frozen, fairly treacherous waters. So we've actually got that 5th person, so we can rotate in and out a lookout person as well. So during one shift, there's always going to be someone there looking out for icebergs, looking out for polar bears, because, yeah, the joy of rowing is you're always going backwards, which is not ideal in a route that's full of obstacles.
Yeah, and it's actually just on that, in terms of, obviously, the stretch that you'll be navigating is relatively clear, otherwise you wouldn't be attempting to do it. But how wide will the pass be that you'll be going through?
It's going to vary hugely along the route. I mean, if you had it on a chart, you know, the route itself kind of does this. I mean, that's what we're aiming for. But it changes every year depending on what the ice melt's doing. So there will be large stretches. One would be in huge open seas, I think particularly at the western end as we get to Alaska. But actually there's going to be bits where we're going through in incredibly narrow sections, and it, as I say, it depends on how much ice is there. But, you know, I have seen little bits of footage where, you know, you literally the width of the boat, and that's about it. So that's exciting in itself. But actually, that's another design part of our boat. It's reinforced, and it's actually incredibly light. So it's designed that if we needed to, we could lift it out and drag it across ice. Okay. And that's part of the reason that we're taking 3 boats, so we can all help each other.
Yeah. And so just to give us a flavour of you're a smallish team. You're confined to a relatively small space. Obviously, give us a sense of what are the dimensions of the boat you're going to be in.
So it's about 9 meters long, and it's about 2.5 meters wide. Sorry, I've got my Atlantic rowing boat on the brain, so this one is a little bit bigger. But yeah, I mean, still, when you think about 5 people sharing that space, it is incredibly tight. So the beauty of the boat that we're doing the Northwest Passage in is that at both ends of the boat you kind of have a covered area, sort of cabin space, where people can rest, you store stuff, a lot of your electrical equipment is, and all that sort of fun stuff. The beauty, as I say, of the NWP boat is that you're able to stretch out completely at both ends, which is such a luxury, because the make of boat that I did the Atlantic in is called an R45. And in the bow cabin, again, you could go end to end, stretch out, and you're absolutely fine. But I was in the stern cabin, and in there you have about 1.5 meters of space that you can actually sit upright in. And in order to lie down, you're sliding your legs down this tube, which is only just wide enough for you to turn on your side in. And unfortunately, because that's kind of in the bowels of the boat, in incredibly hot weather, all the condensation builds up on the walls, runs down the walls, runs down into the bottom of the boat, down to where you want to put your feet. And I mean, we had a pool of cabin soup, basically, that was about 10 centimeters deep.
Lovely.
So we gave up stretching out full stretch after that. It was disgusting. So yeah, that's a real luxury of the NWP boat. But I think that also gives you a sense of scale, doesn't it? To think that the only sheltered space that you've got for that entire 2.5 months is somewhere that you can lie down end to end.
Yeah, and so in terms of culinary delights, what will you be treated to whilst you're out?
Well, there's quite a range. At least there is when you look at the names of them, but actually they all taste remarkably similar, and they all just look like gunge in a bag. So we our main meals are from dehydrated ration packs, which I'm sure anyone who's been in the army will be very familiar with, or to be fair, Scouts or DV or anything actually. So yeah, dehydrated ration packs, add hot water. In theory, wait 8 to 10 minutes, and delicious meal ready. Something else, we need to consume a huge amount of calories every day, just because you expend an awful lot in the constant rowing, and also those cold temperatures as well. So it's very, very hard to eat enough calories just from these frankly really boring ration packs. So you generally substitute it with sort of high fat, high calorie snacks as well. So there's a lot of discussion going on at the moment, and we're talking to various suppliers as well to source those. It was a bone of much contention / a lot of laughter on the Atlantic actually. Was our selection of snacks. I think we had 90 bags of pork scratchings. We had a lot of stroopwafels, which were very popular actually. Chocolate, nuts, fruit. But basically, it just has to be anything that you're actually going to eat. Doesn't really matter about health ultimately, as long as you're getting enough calories down you.
It's just fuel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an obvious, well, I say obvious point. I'm obviously looking at the makeup of your team. 15 individuals. You are the sole woman with.
I am. Yes.
You are the sole woman. I mean, you know, I guess it's not something you necessarily you've considered, but you know, or am I being? Is it something you've considered? You know, is that something that would would ever cause you to not do it? And how are you planning on coping with that?
It really doesn't bother me one bit. I was actually the only woman on my Atlantic crew as well. It just seems to be something that happens quite a lot. As I say, it just doesn't really register. Interestingly for me, I think the more of the male crew were worried about it than I was. It just a total non-issue for me. But one of them in particular was really quite twitchy for the first couple of days. But to be honest, after that, you're knackered, you're working hard, you just don't care. It's just another crewmate. Yeah. And actually, considering it now, so I didn't realize when I signed up I was going to be the only female. You know, it's just how circumstances have transpired, really. But actually, now I feel quite passionately that, you know, one of the lovely things that I love seeing these days is how many more women are involved in adventure and exploration, and it's absolutely brilliant. There's so many fantastic inspirational women out there doing their thing, you know, breaking down barriers, getting more girls involved, and so I feel it's really important that actually we should have a woman on this world first. Like, I think it would be a real shame for there not to be. So yeah, it wasn't an initial focus for me, but now that I am the only girl, I feel quite strongly about it.
No, that's great, and you're absolutely right. That I guess in that world, it is dominated by male explorers / adventurers, and so do you feel a responsibility in terms of being the sole female representative of the crew to not necessarily leave a legacy, but in terms of being able to perhaps empower other girls and women to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that I'm really trying to get across is that that when I said that I was doing the Atlantic Row, there was lots of people like, oh wow, that's amazing, I'd love to do that, but when you realise, listen to kind of all the extensions to that word but, a lot of them weren't necessarily buts. If you really wanted to, you could work a way around it. And totally fair enough that it's not for everyone, you don't want to do it, and that's absolutely fine. But what I was kind of saying is, if you don't want to do it, just say. But if you do want to do it, actually, generally there's ways that you can break down some of those perceived barriers. And I'm not some athlete. I'm not some, I don't know, sporting goddess at all. You know, I like ale, I like cake. You know, I go to the pub far too much, but exactly. But, you know, I'm kind of proving that, you know, everyone can have a go. You know, only woman on a team of strangers. None of us were in the shape that we should have been in when we started the Atlantic because of all the other stuff that was going on. And yet, you know, we broke a world record by 2 weeks. You know, I just think it's really exciting, and hopefully it'll kind of give other girls, women, whoever, just that little bit of inspiration to say, actually, yeah, maybe I can. I'm going to get out there and give it a go.
Yeah, no, I
Whatever
think
their challenge might be.
it's really interesting that you said that, because a few months ago, on one of these, I interviewed a chap called Sam Williams, who has rode the Atlantic. He's also cycled across.
Oh yes, I saw that.
And you know, he was very much of the same mindset, that it wasn't a case of him being an athlete in his own eyes, but it was just a case of, well, why can't I?
Why not? Yeah, absolutely.
Why can't I do it? And you know, actually during the course of the conversation I had with him, just with regards to his complete lack of experience, even he never even changed the bicycle tire before setting off to cycle across Africa. He just had a mindset that he could do it, and actually why can't he do it? And it seems that you
Absolutely.
have the same philosophy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big thing for me.
But, whilst well, hopefully, hopefully the event will go ahead next year, and you're obviously all training hard and you're looking forward to it. I can only imagine that the draw on the financial resources for sponsors and to put this team together are huge. So you presumably still looking for sponsorship, other ways that companies out there, individuals can get involved to help sponsor you and help fund it, if you've not already not taken care of in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're very much still looking for sponsorship. So obviously it's hard enough fundraising at the best of times. When you have all the joy of COVID that's been going on this year, it's even harder, quite understandably. So we've tried to be a little bit creative with our fundraising as well. So there's quite a history of the Northwest Passage with Orkney, and one of our crewmates is also from Orkney. So we've ended up producing our own Northwest Passage expedition gin with Orkney Distillery. So there's been a lot of fun debate over flavours and packaging and all sorts over the last few months, but we've finally launched that. So that's been really exciting, and proceeds from sales of our gin go towards funding the expedition. So that's one of the big things that we're trying to kind of get out there at the moment. I
feel we have. Sorry, Claire, I was going to say, I think we've reached a point in that conversation that everybody on the call and anybody watching can actually now relate. Rowing
and suddenly everyone's like, gin.
No idea, but actually tasting gin, suddenly everyone's going, yeah.
Oh, look, yeah, I think we've got Steve Frost actually.
Steve Frost has got a bottle
showing his bottle.
Yeah. So no, but it's a really, gin being a drink that lots of people are drinking at the moment. It seems a naturally great tie-in for you guys.
Yeah.
But the overall costs, I mean, what are you looking at for, overall cost to running this sort of expedition?
Overall costs, including building the boat and everything, we're looking at around £1 million. So it's a heck of a lot of money. There's an awful lot of logistics there, getting the boats across to Canada, getting them back again, building them. We're casting a mold in the Ukraine and getting the shells built there and then brought over here to do the fit out. Kitting out the crew, getting all the food in. There's a number of huge expenses there. One of the other exciting things that's going on though is we are going to make a documentary. So we've actually had some fantastic support from a chap called Michael Pitts, who has been the cameraman on a number of pretty high profile documentaries. He's the only guy I know who's got David Attenborough on WhatsApp. So he's involved in the Blue Planet and all sorts of really amazing stuff. And he very kindly gave up his time along with one of our team members, brothers, George, who runs a production company as well. And they've made a promotional video for our expedition and pulled together a kind of 3 episode I'm trying to think what the word is, not a transcript, but you know what I mean. So we're in talks we've actually got a mini competition at the moment between 2 different commissioning bodies for our documentary, which is fantastic. So that's really exciting. And so I think, you know, now we're kind of able to go back out to sponsors and kind of say, actually, you know, we've got these guys involved, we've got this 5-minute promotional video that we can show people to really demonstrate that we mean business. So yeah, that with the gin, I'm really hoping that things will start to pick up again. Obviously things are hopefully starting to look a little bit more positive with a vaccine for COVID as well. So yeah, we'll see.
I mean, yeah,
Tough times for sure.
actually, just on that, you know, are you limited? I mean, you know, in terms of red lights and green lights for being able to set off, are there COVID restrictions where you're setting off from versus what you can do when you're there? I mean, are you waiting for governments to say yes or no? What is the next stage for you in that respect?
I mean, it's an ever-moving feast at the moment, isn't it, with COVID? So we really have no clue. I mean, we're going to be it's summer when the ice melts back, obviously. So you know, we're looking at shipping the boats out to Greenland in March, and then on from Greenland to Canada. We're going to have kind of someone on the ground monitoring what's happening with the melt. But you know, we're anticipating setting off in July time probably. I mean, who knows what the state of play is going to be by then. All we can do is to continue to monitor and talk to parties. Yeah. lots of stressful.
Yeah, of course. I've had a couple of questions that have been pinged through to me from guys watching online. One is, you may well have answered this, but what are you most looking forward to specifically about the trip?
I love the simplicity of being out on the ocean. You just park everything else. Life just gets parked for a bit. Before I set off on the Atlantic, I was in a particularly stressful job. And the day that I set off, I just didn't think about it once because there's so much other stuff going on. It's just, your life just gets stripped back to total basics. Eat, sleep, row, repeat. That is it. I'm really, really looking forward to really experiencing the Arctic from that quite unique perspective. You know, we're not going to be in some noisy fuel spilling engine, you know, boat. Mind powered, nice and silent. So really, it's quite a unique perspective on that environment, I think. So I'm really looking forward to that.
And then the natural flip side to that question is, you know, what perhaps are you not looking forward to, or perhaps what are you going to miss most about when you're out?
See, that is a question that comes up. In fact, someone else has just posted it. I find that a really interesting question, and my genuine answer to it is, I don't miss anything because I know that I'm only doing it for a finite period of time. So I kind of want to just make the most of this completely immersive experience. And then I'll go back to my real life and it's all still going to be there. So yeah, obviously there was a couple of times, I mean, on the Atlantic, for example, it was 38 degrees for a good proportion of the time. So it was devilishly hot. And you know, there was a good few times I was thinking about watermelon and ice cubes, but yeah, I was just fully immersed in where I was in the environment and just getting on with the job. And I kind of really liked that. I didn't really want to think about things that I didn't have, but that I would again have in a few weeks' time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you join us, Claire, and I'm really grateful you've been able to give up your time and to share with us this evening. Obviously, what you're looking forward to, what your hopes and dreams are with regard to Expedition, and I really hope it does all go. Firstly, go ahead and obviously go to plan for you. Just on the bit of our back of a fag packet maths, I think you need £1 million, 30 pounds a bottle of gin. So Roundtable members need to buy 30,000 bottles of gin. I know it's not impossible. Ron's giving the big thumbs up. So we will do our best to buy as much gin as we can to help.
Fantastic.
Help but best of luck, and again on behalf of Roundtable League Club, thank you for joining us, and best of luck.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks.
Cheers then.